If you're a hobby filmmaker or want to get into filmmaking but you're on a budget, chances are you've seen some of the many videos over the last few years on the Canon EOS M, a now $200-ish mirrorless camera from 2012 that when hacked with Magic Lantern can shoot up to 5K 14-bit RAW video. I'm serious. Recently, two enterprising filmmaking fans developed the M-Lite, a 3D printed cinema camera body for the tiny mirrorless camera that transforms it into something that looks like an Arri Alexa Mini, a Red Komodo, a Z-Cam, you name it. What drew me to the EOS M originally was that I love the look of film, and I want to achieve that look in my videos while still shooting digital for a much faster, easier, and cheaper workflow than shooting on actual film, because I'm pretty lazy. I'm not a fan of the overly sharp clinical look that's pretty common with a lot of modern cameras and people using the sharpest lenses. I prefer an image with character that feels organic. In my opinion, one of the closest digital cameras to matching real film is the now discontinued Digital Bolex D16. It uses a Kodak sensor and global shutter and looks so organic, and the colors are just beautiful. But used, they sell for anywhere from $6,000 to $11,000 Canadian, a camera that's actually increased in value over time. The Digital Bolex has a Super 16mm size sensor, just like the original Blackmagic Pocket Cinema camera and Micro Cinema camera. It shoots 2K RAW Cinema DNG video and is compatible with tons of vintage cinema lenses. I'm a huge fan of vintage lenses, which I think is a big part of replicating the film look. So, because I couldn't afford a Digital Bolex for myself, I bought a much cheaper option, the EOS M. It cost me $200 Canadian and came with the Canon kit lens, which I sold for $80. With a Magic Lantern on the EOS M, one of the RAW settings is to shoot in 2.8K 14-bit RAW video with a roughly 3x crop factor. This gives you nearly the same crop factor of Super 16mm, so I can shoot using my Super 16 Cinema Zoom lenses in 2.8K. These ingenue lenses are a 12 to 120mm f2.2 and 17 to 68mm f2.2, each for under $1,000, but only cover Super 16. Any larger sensor will give you lots of vignetting. In other modes on the EOS M, you can shoot without that crop factor for a regular Super 35mm-ish field of view. When using non-cinema cameras, usually you run into issues with battery life, ergonomics, and stability. The issue with rigging up small mirrorless cameras to give you cinema features is that you can spend lots of money and trial and error trying to figure out the best rig, adding external power supply, camera cages, handles, all that fun stuff. It can look cool, or it can look funny, depending on who you're asking. But the advantage of a cinema body is that you don't need to do tons of rigging. You get the added weight which helps with stabilization when shooting handheld. It looks way more professional to clients, and in the case of the M-Lite, it has a built-in fan to cool the camera. So for me, purchasing the M-Lite for $230 American was a no-brainer. Also, I love DIY projects, and the idea of taking apart a cheap camera and building it into more of a cinema rig sounds really fun to me. I wasn't paid to make this video, I'm just a fan of cheap camera solutions, and I think the M-Lite project is really cool. It's a little nerve-wracking to take apart a camera and rewire some ribbon cables, but for a camera that cheap, it wouldn't be the end of the world if I broke it. In fact, I did break the button ribbon cable and had to order a new one from China, but it was only $2. The M-Lite body is a super high-quality 3D print that looks and feels like a real cinema camera. People who've seen me with it have asked if I'm shooting on a camera that costs thousands of dollars, and sometimes don't believe me when I tell them there's just a $200 camera inside a 3D printed housing. So the reason I made this video was for anyone looking to get into vintage lenses and replicating the film look, but spending the least amount of money possible while still getting a great camera. I definitely recommend ordering an M-Lite, and you only have until the end of August 2023 to order one. After that, they're not making them anymore. Be aware that doing the build will remove the touchscreen functionality and you won't have access to the shutter button to take photos. But I have other cameras I use for photos anyway, and I only ever use touchscreen for autofocus on my Sony FX3, and autofocus doesn't work with vintage lenses, which is what I actually specifically got the EOS M camera for. My only recommendation to Tom Camlin and Cole Power on the build would be to have come up with a way to build it where we don't have to reattach the back cover of the EOS M to the camera, because that's what made the build pretty hard for me and kept detaching my button ribbon cable. But If you buy an M-Lite, make sure to follow their instructions and definitely use sellotape to keep that ribbon cable protected and attached. I'm not going to give you a tutorial on installing Magic Lantern, the best settings, or building the M-Lite because there are already tons of those videos on YouTube, and I'll link some of my favorites in the description below. I highly encourage you to check out 3dfocus.org and order an M-Lite for yourself while they're still available. Definitely opt for the dummy battery and shortened cable, and in my opinion, you should get the angled LCD and sun hood and a spare button ribbon cable too. I recently ordered the Amera custom plates for mine so I could pretend I'm shooting on my other dream camera, the Arri Alexa Mini. So a huge shout out to Cole Power and Tom Camlin for developing the M-Lite, being super responsive and helpful on social media to the community, and best of luck to all of you who buy one.
Look at, it's a lens. The lens is spinning. Oh.